Despite Overlord having a big cast of characters, there are only a very few selection of characters that are not only respected by other characters of the series, but they're also respected by the audience because of certain things they did. I mean, a little while ago I talked about Xanac and how I had huge respects for him during the Kingdom arc in season 4, in which even though he knew it was a losing battle to go up against Ainz and his army, he still tried to do every last thing in order to protect his kingdom. Unfortunately for him, he will be betrayed by the very same people he would try to protect. However, there is another character in this series that also has a lot of respect, and that is none other than Brain Unglaus. Even though he was a side character and his character wasn't that big of an impact to the main story of Overlord, there were still a lot of moments in his character that not only gave us great character development for him, but also showed us what kind of person he is, as even though he faced many terrifying situations, he was still able to keep going forward, and ultimately during his last final moment, he was still able to show us what kind of person he truly was. But before we get into that, let's just start from the beginning, as it always wasn't the case. So Brain was considered to be a very strong warrior, and he was able to hold that title as the very strongest warrior to be alive, and because of that title, it was very clear that Brain was very confident in his skills, and he felt that he could easily take down anybody no matter who they were. But that all completely changed when he encountered Sheltier, one of the people who is part of Nazarick and also one of the members of Ainz's group. And just like the other members of Ainz's group, she is a very tough opponent and is somebody that you should not take lightly, and she was able to clearly show that in the case with her battle with Brain, as when Brain wanted to take her down by using one of his signature moves, a move in which it typically could be able to destroy any average person, that was not the case with Sheltier, as when Brain tried to do a quick attack against Sheltier, she was not only able to stop it very quickly, but it was very clear that for Sheltier this fight was completely meaningless, as it was very clear who was going to be able to survive this fight and make it out alive. And at that moment when Brain realized that none of his attacks were going to work against Sheltier, you can quickly see the fear in his face, in which he realized that he was probably not going to be able to make it out alive, and it was completely meaningless his title, because there are people like Sheltier, monsters in this world, who are far more superior than him. However, due to certain circumstances, Brain was actually able to escape Sheltier and he made it out alive to see another day. However, it's obvious that he was traumatized by the whole situation. As the series continues, there will be very few moments in which Brain actually mentions this whole situation once again, and you could tell that even though he tries recounting the story, he is still amazed but at the same time terrified at the fact that there is somebody like Sheltier in this world. Now, for an average person, this would be the perfect chance into going into hiding and just trying to live a peaceful life and doing normal things that a normal person would do, like get a job and just probably settle in. However, Brain was not that kind of person. That is something that a lot of people could notice very quickly, that it takes a lot of courage to keep going forward after dealing with that very horrifying situation, after it was very clear and it was very certain for Brain that he was going to certainly die at that moment had he not been able to escape Sheltier. But at the same time, while that situation was terrifying for Brain, even though he was terrified at Sheltier and also terrified the fact that in any moment he could see Sheltier once again, he still had his pride. He still wanted to be a warrior. He had this mindset in which no matter what happens, he was still going to keep moving forward as a warrior and try to do whatever he can to protect the people that he wants to protect. Not to mention as well that the reason why he may be having this mindset as well is because of his good friend Gazef, as even Gazef himself also had the mindset in which no matter what happens, they will never back down and they will just keep holding their head up high, which to me is the reason why Brain never really ran away, is because he had huge respect for Gazef and the way of his thinking, that he too couldn't back down and just simply ran away, because that would not be what it means to be a strong warrior. And as the series continues, you see Brain still doing his warrior duties, and even at one point he actually works together with Sebas, unknowing that Sebas is also part of Nazarick and is somebody that knows Sheltier. The reason why Brain was working with Sebas was because they were on a rescue mission to save Tuare, another character in the Overlord series, and it seemed that things were going well. Well, that was until once again Brain encountered Sheltier. Now, when encountering Sheltier once again, Brain could have easily gotten the option to just simply run away, because he's one of the people who knew firsthand just how dangerous Sheltier is, and at that moment Sheltier had no idea where he was. So yeah, he had the perfect chance to escape and never see Sheltier ever again. again. However, for him, it was unfinished business, and he was determined to go up against Sheltier once again. So during the rematch, Sheltier versus Brain once again, Brain, while he was still fearing what was going to happen and didn't know the outcome of the situation, he still went on with his attack, and ultimately his attack will only do damage to Sheltier's nail, to which for Sheltier, it wasn't really that impressive, but the only thing that she was impressed about that whole thing was the fact that it seems that he was really aiming to at least do some damage to her nail. While for some that may seem like a really pointless attack or something that was not even worth doing, for Brain it was a huge deal because he actually managed to do at least some damage in Sheltier. Sure, it wasn't that big amount of damage, and sure, it's not like Sheltier was going to die at that moment or was at risk of losing her life, but for Brain, he was very excited at the fact that he was at least able to throw some attack to Sheltier, comparing it to the first battle. I mean, the first battle, no matter what he did, not a single attack landed on Sheltier, but in this moment, he at least managed to get Sheltier's nail. To make it even more shocking is the fact that Brain was able to again escape Sheltier unharmed, making it 2 times in which Brain survived a terrifying situation and lived to see another day. However, things wouldn't last that long forever because, of course, during season 4, during the fall of the kingdom, in which Ainz declared war on the kingdom and was planning on taking over, many people already established the kingdom was doomed, and that no matter what happens, Ainz was going to be able to take over this kingdom like it's nothing, because really there was nobody in the kingdom that was able to stop Ainz and his entire army, since they have shown just how truly powerful they are. However, while many people decided to flee the kingdom and go find shelter somewhere else, Brain was one of the few people that still decided to stay at the kingdom and to try and protect it until the end. And this is where the final chapter of Brain's character will begin, because his next fight wouldn't be another third round with Sheltier. No, it will be a fight against one other member of Ainz's group. His name will be Cocytus. Of course, Cocytus is very surprised at the fact that Brain was all by himself and trying to fight him. And even Brain himself, when facing Cocytus, knew that this person was extremely powerful. But nevertheless, Brain was still determined as a strong warrior to still fight until the very last moment, and he did just that. One interesting fact about this fight, however, is how Brain actually drank several potions, and the amount of potions he drank actually made him reach to level 40, which is the status of a hero. So yeah, Brain was going to use everything he got in order to at least do something about Cocytus. However, sadly, even though he was determined to do everything whatever he can to protect the kingdom, even though he was able to launch his attack, it wouldn't matter. No matter how many potions he drank, no matter how determined he was to protect the kingdom, Brain would sadly meet his end, as just one attack from Cocytus was enough to end Brain's life. However, Cocytus had tremendous respect for Brain. It takes a lot of courage for someone to try to go up against him, and even though Cocytus realized that with the skills that Brain had, he would have been a very good member to have, because with Brain's skills, that would have been a tremendous good thing for Nazarick. Ultimately, he decided to shut that idea down because he didn't want to embarrass the resolve of a warrior. He saw it very clearly that Brain was going to fight till the very end, and that's something that Cocytus had a lot of respect for. And instead of just simply slashing the body into pieces or just obliterating it as a whole, Cocytus decided to just simply freeze Brain's body. And as another showing of respect, Cocytus actually took a detour from the path that Brain was defending, because that's the path that Brain died for to defend, and that is something that Cocytus wasn't going to disrespect. So he decided to take a detour, which once again, it goes to show us that even though Brain lost very quickly and had no chance into defeating Cocytus whatsoever, at the end of the day, he was still able to do one thing, and that is not only get the respect by Cocytus, but we as the audience as well. In these final moments, it just goes to show us what Brain as a character was. He was a person who believed in what he was doing. He was a person who was definitely the definition of a strong warrior. Despite all the circumstances, despite all the very dangerous and traumatizing situations that he was in, he never cowered in fear. He never ran away from the problems. He never ran away from the dangerous situation. No, he always fought them head on and put his head up high. Which, let's be honest, not a lot of people would do this. Like, not a lot of people would do half the things that Brain did in this series. Most people would just simply have called it quits and that's it. But Brain wasn't those kind of people. And I think this is the reason why I enjoy Brain's character development throughout this series. He started off someone who was very confident with his skills, only started to realize reality that there are monsters in the Overlord world that are just as dangerous, if not more powerful than he is. While he was scared, and it was very clear that anytime he recounted those moments, the fear he had in his face, he never let that stop him, and he still continued to do the things that he always did. And that's why the last remaining moments of Brain as a character were really great. Not only was he a warrior from the beginning, but he managed to be a warrior till the very end, and that's why Brain is one of the most respectable characters in Overlord. And yeah, that's pretty much my entire video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.